Welcome to my channel. I am Daisy, your hostess. In this video, we are covering the book titled How to Tap Your Hidden Sources of Energy by Elmer Wheeler. In the previous chapter, the author was talking about fears, and you might think, well, how do fears have anything to do with energy? And the truth of it is very obvious. Maybe you have experienced that. When you are afraid of something, you are being de-energized. So the energy that you need to go after your dreams, to do the things that you're doing, is not available for you. Such as the many fears that many of us experience. Could be fear that you're not enough, or maybe you're afraid that you are not going to get that job. You're not qualified. You're too old. You're too young. In the end, this fear emotion is one that depletes us and robs us of so much needed energy. In the other chapter that was also in that same video, it had to do with confidence. And lacking confidence also is very demoralizing. And when something's demoralizing, it makes us feel so low. And so we don't have that pep, that vim, that vigor that the author mentions to do things. And he does give us in that chapter ways to lift ourselves up and, build that energy of self-confidence that then begins to be very attractive and also contagious. And people want to be around confident people. I mentioned this before about this book and probably many of the books that I do have currently on the channel. These are in the public domain. And while like this particular book, you could tell that it was post-depression, and the language is so, I would say, polite. They still use the word gay in referring to a state of happiness. And what I do want to share with you is that the values are timeless. And that's what I'm going for here. While we may change in culture, we may change in how we dress and, what is more tolerant now as opposed to back then. Sometimes I start talking and I just wish I had all the answers that I could share. And I know that as a collective group, one thing that will bring us together is values of compassion, values of love, and values to seek an ideal for the human race, and the desire to be a better person for ourselves, a better person for our families, and a better person for humanity. Well, I will stop myself right there. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Glad you found us. If you'd like to catch up on the previous videos and chapters, please visit my book playlist. And again, to our subscribing community, welcome back. And sit back and enjoy as I turn the page to the next chapter. Chapter 10. One sure way to maintain energy is to use these ways to avoid guilt feeling. Many suffer from what they cannot help. An interesting fact about energy loss was brought recently to my attention: loss of energy through guilt feelings. Dora Albert, the writer, noted that guilt feelings drain energy, and I believe she has a good point. I have often worried myself into loss of energy from guilt feelings. Miss Albert recites such instances of people receiving more money in change than they were entitled, and how the worry of the store clerk having to make up the loss really ran them down. She cites many such instances of similar guilt feelings and how they mentally eat you up. I would say, therefore, that another good way to gain energy is to plug up this loss, for what is saved is gained. Analyze your guilt. I would think that guilt feelings are of two kinds. A, the honest guilt feelings, those where someone is to be hurt by what has happened, and you can remove the guilt by removing the deed, such as returning an overpayment. B, dishonest guilt feelings are another brand. They can't be corrected by you, and in fact, were often never caused by you in the first place. It is easy to see that a guilt feeling of the kind such as wrongfully accusing someone can be corrected when you admit your error. Then you relax, and energy is no longer wastefully consumed by your thoughts. You said something in haste, but are willing to admit your error and so ease your tension. This is an easy way to plug up this waste. But the other loss of energy, due to worry over something you cannot correct or had no cause in the start with, is another more serious loss of energy. It makes you brood. You feel that if you had been at home when the dog ate the poison, you'd have saved his life. You let this thought worry you. It is dishonest thought in that while it may be true that your presence might have helped, there's no certainty to the thought. Yet you permit it to worry you sick. For example, a person is suddenly caught in a web of circumstances. A car is mashed up and the two passengers are married, but not to each other. One had merely invited the other to be taken home, and that was all there was to it, until the newspapers reported factually that Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so were in the car and were removed to a hospital. At once the gossip ears of their friend perk up, and a horrible maze of misunderstanding ensues. Guilt feelings run rampant, energy is drained off fast, until finally they become sensible and don't permit the incident to bother them. This may be difficult, but it is important, say psychologists, to bring about, else the guilt feeling will get you down. You borrow a lawnmower and accidentally break it. In a thoughtless moment, you return the borrowed lawnmower, say nothing, hoping the owner will think he had broken the mower. This guilt feeling eats into you. Then finally, you see your impulsive error. You call up the friend and offer to have the mower repaired. Better yet, you call on him, take the mower, and have it fixed yourself so as to ease the situation. At once, you breathe easier. Life again looks good. Energy loss is plugged up. Guilt is often out of proportion. Often your guilt feelings are way out of proportion to the deed. You become a neurotic type. You enter into a depressed state of mind because you just know you were the real cause of some trouble. Serious depressions often follow the death of someone close to you, and you recall the many incidents in your life with that person that you regret. I am sorry I was not nice on that occasion, you say to yourself, or I should have given in at that time. This worries you, and you go into a depressed state. This burns up energy fast. Yet, upon analysis, you will tell yourself, I am glad I did so much for him while he was alive. You see, you can look for the good with that person or the bad. It is often a point of view. So sell yourself that you did all possible in a human way with that person and feel glad you did that much. See the good, not the bad. That's a sure way of overcoming a de-energizing feeling of guilt for having been unkind to someone, as we all seem to do at times. Often you are falsely accused. Look what you did, exclaims someone. If it hadn't been for you, this would never have happened. This accusation hurts you. It brings on an unnecessary guilt feeling until someone with sense says, after all, look at the good you did. Look at that time you spent helping that person. I am sure nothing you did really caused the trouble. What causes guilt feelings? There are many causes for abnormal guilt feelings, such as 1. You are too strongly influenced by what others say. You let their pointing fingers get you down. You are hypersensitive to their accusations. You permit their words to cut and hurt you. Good analysis of both sides of the case will often ease your mind. 2. Your conscience is too keen. Everything affects you too strongly. You have a fierce conscience, or as put by Dr. Judd Marmer, excessive guilt feelings are apt to be the result of a tyrannical conscience. The way the doctor advises you to overcome the tyrannical conscience is to be more tolerant of others, not letting them affect you with false guilt feelings. You have done the best you can for your children, so if one goes bad, it is not your fault. Sell yourself on this philosophy. 3. Perfectionists in life have multiple guilt feelings. They expect too much from their employees. For example, and when one fails, the boss feels it was his fault. It was not. He did the best he could to train the employee, and if the employee failed, the boss cannot take the blame unless he is a perfectionist. Then it gets him down. The trick is to avoid perfectionism. Allow for human errors in others. If you do, you will eliminate at once this source of guilt feeling. 4. Don't expect too much. Don't be overly aggressive. Get what you can in life for yourself. Expect as much as possible from others, but don't demand too much of others. Take the little with the grace of happiness. Be thankful you are getting at least that little. The one who sets his sights too high is always feeling guilty that he is getting no place in life. Happy people are content with the little they receive and so seldom burn up energy needlessly. Overweight causes guilt feelings. Food is nice until someone behind your back calls you fatso. This worries you. It gets you down. You have a guilty look on your face at mealtime, and you are upset at your large appetite. The answer, of course, is very simple. You can lose this guilt feeling by losing fat. You can get back that youthful figure you once had and thus remove this guilt feeling of being a fatso of the frying pan. During the spree, you can make fun of your eating. Make it a joke. Get others to join in with you. And what once was a guilt feeling as you sneaked a handful of forbidden food now becomes a joke. So, if being a fatso is getting you down, remove the fat. It's that simple. Guilt feelings from lack of sex drive. Many people lack a powerful sex drive, or think they do. They hear all tales of someone's sex drive, and this gives them a guilt feeling. What can be done? This. Find out what is normal in sex, not from friends, but from the doctor. Get the facts on what is normal sex life. You may be surprised that it isn't what your bragging friends claim, and this knowledge will at once relieve you of a guilt feeling. Proper sex life invigorates, doesn't rob energy, but if it becomes a worry, then it robs you of energy. People do vary in their sexual responsiveness. Some are very cold, but doctors will tell you that 90% of so-called frigidity is psychological. Often lack of sex is due to fear, misunderstanding, suppressed anger, or resentfulness. Once these are removed, sex functions freely and the guilt feeling disappears. In a Redbook magazine article, Hannah Lees pointed out how frequently frigidity can be corrected by proper attention. She said, "Many unresponsive wives could be much freer and happier in their lovemaking with a little more understanding of their feelings." She pointed out that what often withers their response is not something physically complicated, but some mental attitude that once removed, as you remove any boogeyman, brings on proper sexual functioning. Dr. Catherine Bacon, a noted psychoanalyst, is convinced that love relationships of many men and women are crippled by their fear of showing the angry feelings that arise from the complications and pressures in modern life. By avoiding anger, then, we avoid many mental blocks, including that of a guilty sex feeling. In summary, let me list what causes guilt feelings. Being over-influenced by what others say, having too keen a conscience, being a perfectionist, expecting too much of others, being overly aggressive. In addition to these, you can accumulate needless guilt feelings from being overweight, having sex fears, worrying over your health, worry over your status in life, wearing your feelings on your shoulder, needless bursts of anger. Learn to control these factors that set off guilt feelings, and you will find your ways to keep energy at a more normal level and to aid you in getting along better in life. Chapter Success Story. This is the story of a Dallas policeman. He is Chief Jesse Curry, a cop and a gentleman, a tough guy and a kind soul, but above all, a man who knows guilt feelings of people and what such feelings can do to them. For as with any officer, Chief Curry deals in guilt as well as truth and honesty. The chief has told me on occasion when he has had with me talk before his officers on, of all things, personal salesmanship, that guilt feelings do much to drive a criminal to give up, as well as needlessly worry minor violators of the law. A child breaks a school window by accident. He is frightened. The guilt fear takes over and he runs away from home. A woman unintentionally drives through a red light and receives a ticket. Guilt overcomes her. She feels criminal. She needlessly worries herself and wears down her resistance and burns up energy trying to live down crime. Others will brood over the forms of mild infractions of the law, where a more reasoning person will admit his failure, face up to it, and then let it become a thing of the past. Guilty conscience can wear people down. Ask the chief how to avoid wear and tear on nervous energy through brooding over guilt feelings, and the chief will tell you. First, if it is a real crime, give yourself up. It is the best way. It will relieve your mind, relax your body, and give your soul a chance to mend. If it is a minor something such as a parking ticket, then pay up the fine. Don't carry the ticket around you as a constant pocket reminder of your so-called master crime. It is really nothing too bad. Sure, try to avoid tickets, but when one does come from some inevitable source or indiscretion, then get it off your mind by getting the ticket out of your possession. Pay up. Now that's what I call modern therapeutic advice. Advice to overcome a guilt feeling about an ever-prevalent possibility in our lives, traffic tickets. The same applies, says the chief, with other more serious guilt feelings. We come across hardened criminals who, hounded by guilt feelings, finally cannot take it any longer and give up. If people realized that in facing up to their guilt, they'd sidestep the tearing down attributes of guilty consciences, they'd be quicker to fess up to their misdeeds and get them off their mind. That's practical advice to banish nerve-destroying guilt feelings. Get them off your mind. Chapter Thought. Having needless guilt feelings expends energy fast. The person who learns how to prevent, overcome, or dissipate guilt feelings will go far along life's span of years. End of chapter. Stay here. We're going to flip the page right into chapter 11. In the meantime, take a second there and hit that like button. Let me know you were here. Chapter 11. Your attitude on sex can raise or lower your energy. It's here to stay. What is the sex drive? What makes it and what makes it going? And does it rob and cheat us of energy, or can it be used properly to magnify energy? The subject is vast, too far-reaching for a single chapter. Books and books have been written on this subject, and little can be added here except on one phase: sex's ability to produce energy. Here are some sex factors pertaining to energy. First, sex is part of the world. It is nothing to hide from people in false modesty, or to be read in pornographic literature off certain newsstands. Most countries face sex for what it is, reproduction of the race. They have a full understanding of its uses, vagaries, its meanings, handicaps, and its intent. One amusing explanation of sex: a trick of the gods to propagate the world. That's a damn down-to-earth explanation. Sex drive to stay. There are others less facetious, but not a bit stronger. The sex drive is here to propagate Earth and to make sure that people, animals, insects, and the like continue in a procession of progress so the Earth won't die out from lack of reproduction. You manage your sleep, recreation, eating habits, and fun moments. So it is with sex. It must be managed, and then it works for and not against our energies. Most psychologists, criminologists, and medical men will make the same comment. Properly managed, sex works for and not against people's energies. It can rejuvenate run-down and energyless people. It can exhilarate the hopeless. It can give them a glow of warmth and love and compassion when properly managed. And that seems to be the one big way to make sex work for you: proper management. When sex de-energizes, it is usually due to lack of knowledge of its workings, and much is being done in schools and elsewhere these days to train people in sex as people are trained in proper eating habits. False modesty in America still prohibits open sex discussions. This is not the case in foreign lands where it is brought into the open early in life, where bathers in certain countries commingling because they have nothing to hide. That is nature, normal nature, and people lacking this understanding of sex are not normal, but frustrated blue noses. The sex drive is born with us, and it is nurtured through proper living. Little can be done to falsely stimulate it, although in certain cases where it is lacking due to physical makeup, the doctors can be of great assistance. What doctors must do is to reach the people who hide their difficulties, who let inefficiencies go on, year after year, until the lack of sex has drained off their energies, pep and vigor. This need not be the case. If you have such a difficulty, consult your physician. Be as honest with him as you would be with your banker and lawyer in discussing your business affairs. Today, anyone failing or lacking in the sex urge can get much help, and that is step 1 to gain energy. See your doctor. 3 fears of sex. What drains off much energy are the 3 fears of sex, which are fear of impotency, fear of children, fear of being unsatisfactory. Such fears eat the souls of people, and you see them crawling through life's byways, shriveled and worn, hard to get along with. All of which is unnecessary if that person unsells himself on fears of sex, either through proper educational reading as supplied by any good public library, or by consultation with a physician or an expert in family relations. Once these 3 fears are disbanded, that person usually enjoys a life of unbounded energy. Don't fear sex. If the drive is not there, have no fear. For if sex cannot be developed, life without sex doesn't mean the end. Monks are examples that life can go on just as well without sex, for it does no physical damage if you can manage lack of sex. This is a scientific fact. It is the attending fears that let you down, not the physical lack of sex. Love is mental. In cases where sex has been destroyed, have no fear, for love is not sex, nor is sex love. Love for a person can appear in many forms other than sexual attraction. Love is partly mental, not always physical. It is when the lack of sex worries you that you are let down and lose energy. Many a celibate, one who refrains from sex, is a man of great strength, character, and radiates ultimate health. He is filled with vim, vigor, and vitality for life as he wants it, for he has learned to manage sex, and as commander of it, he never lets it get hold of him to the point where despondency robs him of life's vitality. De-energizing thoughts. In his book, A Minnesota's Doctor's Home Remedies for Common and Uncommon Ailments, Dr. Jen E. Aikenlaub says about sex that it can be a tonic, a fair weather friend, a producer of energy. There are times, he says, when you're upset and depressed and have a temporary impairment, but this soon passes. What de-energizes you, he claims, are your thoughts of impotency. Such thoughts degenerate you, but not sex itself, which is a biological necessity, as are the other requirements. Footnote: Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, Prentice Hall, Inc., 1961. One cure for temporary slowdown of sex, says Dr. Aikenlaub, is not to force oneself. But this famed doctor also says that proper sex can tone up people and give them energy. As he sums up, many people dragging their heels half their lives have good cures in a doctor's office, even to mild surgery that at times corrects missing sexual functions. Once the correction is made, that person suddenly finds zest in life. The doctor's views on menopause are stated this way. The complaints of lack of energy are often purely psychosomatic. If a woman doesn't realize she's having a change of life, she'll perhaps not be bothered except in unusual cases. He says that most doctors claim the only thing missing after menopause in a woman is her monthly illness. Nothing else disappears, and that includes the sex drive. So don't fight menopause. The change of life might do you good. For changes in life, menopause, do not mean a change in the sex drive. Sex can go on and on, properly managed, beyond the change. You will constantly read of 80-year-old men fathering children. The fear that one will lose sex urge is what hurts people. It wears on the mind, and soon the stress and strain point has been reached, the plimsoll mark, and a person soon sinks over the mark, de-energized. Food and sex. Can foods aid sex energy? Certainly, for the healthy body has a healthy sex. There is no special secret food set aside for sex energy. Much has been suggested on this, but scientists claim most are mental lifts. For all foods build up the entire body, and this includes the organs that make sex possible. It is a fallacy that foods such as oysters and root juices build sex energy. They help sex no more than bread, meat, and potatoes. There has yet to be found a magic potion to renew sexual vigors, but the magic of a sort has been discovered by millions who have learned how to handle sex, manage it, and be the boss. Alcohol and sex. It may give one false ideas, but alcohol is a depressant. And while at first it raises your energy through depression of your inhibitions to a point where fears fade and desires take over, alcohol soon makes you impotent in many ways. It is a well-known fact that drunks are unable to abide by their sexual thoughts. To them, it must be all mental. Are sex operations successful? Can proper operations on people help loss of sex? Certain operations, yes, but not the off-brand ones as practiced below the Rio and border towns in so-called nanny goat hospitals. These operations might require scientific investigation, but medical science has done much in the technique of restoring sex, correcting sex itself, and otherwise being of great benefit to those lacking sex abilities through defects from birth. The point being, don't give up because nature was sorry with you, any more than you give up because you've a useless appendix or tonsils, or were born with a mole on your nose that is getting you down mentally and cutting off energy thrusts. Today's doctor faces these problems constantly and will correct what nature let down or just 100% twisted up or simply ignored. Ignorance defeats sex. Education can do much in correcting false modesty. Ignorance is what causes sexual troubles. Once you've learned about sex, its good points and limitations, energy flows naturally. So learn the ramifications of sex as you would learn about proper diet to give energy. As one doctor says, learn sex and how it functions, then learn how to manage it. You will always note a person who manages sex. He has a glow about him, an exhilaration and a positive attitude in sex life, a freedom and a verb that puts sparkle into his eyes and a glow into his cheeks and makes him appear years younger than his calendar age. Help yourself to good looks, advises Elizabeth Gillian, the advocate of youth, even at her age of 80+. Mrs. Bernard McFadden also takes delight in fooling people with her age, well kept by proper management of her life's requisites. Men don't seem to mind loss of looks, say such ladies, but women certainly do. And in addition to facial exercises that each advocates to correct premature wrinkles, they advise working with nature and not against it, and that applies to sex. Jack Benny's words of wisdom. In an interview one time with Eileen Mosby, Jack Benny said these words of wisdom that Methuselah might well have spoken. You don't look older to people who see you all the time. I really feel 39. I forgot my age long ago, just as I forgot my right name when I became Jack Benny. I do the 39 gag so much on my show that I don't picture myself much older. 3 sex rules. How can I then manage my sex energy? Well, try these rules. Rule 1, accept sex as normal. Rule 2, Express it as a natural law. Rule 3. Let it work for and not against you. I believe that if you'll put these rules to work for you, you'll find an energy drive that is boundless. Chapter Success Story. Portuguese Macau, just 40 miles by boat or plane from Hong Kong and uncomfortably close to Red China, is a tight little town well managed by leading citizens like Senor Nolasco. One day I asked Senor Nolasco how come Mr. Fu, a Chinese of 80 and many years, kept his great energy, for Mr. Fu was still quite active in the nightlife and gambling casinos despite his advanced age. Does he have a magic oriental potion? I asked. Nolasco laughed. They say he drinks snake oil made from dried snakes. But is it true? As true as any saying of old men with a glint still in their eyes, Nolasco laughed. But mainly Mr. Fu gets his health and keeps his great energy from common sense living and proper eating. And is it really true that he has 6 legal wives and 6 separate homes he keeps them in? I asked. Yes, it's true, Nolasco told me, and I might add, his confinement is not always to his wives. Of course, not many of us would like to try to keep 6 wives or 6 husbands happy, and most of us wouldn't want to take snake oil either. But we might follow Mr. Fu's lead in proper eating, common sense living, and an acceptance of sex as a natural part of life, because this formula does produce magic results in terms of youthful energy, get up and go. If you don't believe me, visit Macau and Mr. Fu and see for yourself. Chapter Thought. Sex doesn't de-energize, it energizes. But only if properly managed, as you'd properly manage housekeeping or office or factory routine. End of chapter. Do hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know you were here, and let's head over to the next video where Elmer Wheeler will share some points on what to eat to produce more energy.